Breaking news. Things are pretty busy behind the scenes at the Baltimore Ravens, and big news is shaking up the offseason. Yes, my friends, I'm going to tell you all the details right now about what's going on. But before I go any further, make sure you've already hit the like button if you've been a Ravens fan for over 10 years. If possible, write something like, "I love the Baltimore Ravens." Now let's get to the news. We're diving into two hot stories, one that has Jaire Alexander at the center of trade rumors, and another that could see veteran offensive tackle George Fant join the Ravens roster. Let's get to it. Starting with Jaire Alexander, the all-pro cornerback whose future with the Green Bay Packers has been uncertain for months. At first glance, it seemed like the Packers were ready to move on. The narrative early this offseason made it seem like Alexander and the organization were on completely different pages. But recent comments from Packers general manager Brian Gutekunst suggest the tone may have changed. Speaking to reporters at the NFL meetings, Gutekunst left the door open for Alexander to remain with the team, saying they're still working out what is best for the player and the organization. He even mentioned that he is hopeful for a resolution before the draft. That's a far cry from earlier statements that suggested a divorce was imminent. There's talk of the Packers not even asking Alexander to take a pay cut, and one source claimed that if they don't find a trading partner, they might just release him. Now here's the kicker. That scenario, Green Bay shopping Alexander or outright cutting him, has sparked massive speculation that the Ravens could be in the mix. Baltimore is desperate for cornerback help. The room right now is thin, really thin. You've got Marlon Humphrey locked in, and the expectation is that Chidobe Awuzie will likely win a starting spot over TJ Tampa, though the battle will be close. Nate Wiggins is there too, but overall, it's not a group that inspires total confidence heading into the season. And this is where the Jaire Alexander rumors start making a lot more sense. Adding a cornerback of his caliber, assuming he can stay healthy, would be a monumental upgrade. But here's the problem. The financials are rough. Alexander carries a $25 million cap hit in 2025, and moving him would cost Green Bay an $18.12 million dead cap hit. That's not nothing. That kind of money is a big gamble, especially for a guy who's missed 20 games in the last 2 seasons. Let that sink in. 20 games. So now, the Ravens are left with a dilemma.
Do they push their chips in and go after a top-tier talent who might not be on the field half the time? Or do they keep their draft picks, keep their cap space intact, and hope that one of the young corners can step up? And speaking of the draft, there are a few names to watch. The Ravens are eyeing Jaire Alexander from Texas, though mock drafts have him going as high as the top 10, so don't count on him falling to 27. More realistic options in the second round include Benjamin Morrison, Trey Amos, and Shyheim Revel Jr. These aren't just depth pieces, they're legitimate contenders to compete for a starting role. So even though the Jaire Alexander rumors are heating up, the Ravens have some alternatives if they choose to build through the draft. Now, let's pivot to the offensive line because there's another interesting name being tossed around, George Fant. The Ravens are reportedly eyeing the veteran swing tackle, and this might be a low-risk move that pays off in a big way. Fant's story is unique. He only played 1 year of college football after 4 years of basketball at Western Kentucky. He started his NFL career with the Seahawks, bounced around with the Jets and Texans, and eventually made his way back to Seattle. But here's the catch. His career has been plagued by injuries. In 2024, Fant played just 30 total snaps before landing on injured reserve. That's it. In 2023, he gave Houston a solid season with 915 snaps, but it's been a roller coaster ride in terms of availability. Still, when healthy, he's a serviceable tackle. His PFF grades are decent, peaking at 71.1 in 2021 and settling around the low 60s in recent years. So why should the Ravens even consider him? 2 words, Ronnie Stanley. As much as we love what Stanley brings to the table when he's at his best, his health has been a massive question mark. Yes, he played all 17 games in 2024, but that came after playing only 18 games combined in the 3 seasons before. The Ravens need insurance. They need a break glass in case of emergency option, and George Fant could be that guy. He wouldn't be a day-one starter, but he'd bring veteran presence and provide stability at a position that's 1 injury away from becoming a crisis. And the Ravens' offensive line needs all the depth it can get. Roger Rosengarten had a strong rookie season, but sophomore slumps are real, and the team can't afford to bank everything on him and Stanley staying healthy all year. Fant wouldn't solve every issue, but he'd give the Ravens a reliable fallback plan while also offering the flexibility to be a swing tackle who can step in at multiple positions. So Ravens fans, what do you think? Is Jaire Alexander worth the risk, even with his price tag and injury history? And is George Fant the right veteran to bring into the fold as insurance for Ronnie Stanley? Drop your thoughts in the comments. I want to hear it all. Let's talk about it. Let's keep the conversation going, Ravens flock, because there's still plenty more to unpack on both of these situations, especially when we look at what they could mean for the team's strategy heading into the NFL draft and the 2025 season overall. Starting again with Jaire Alexander, this whole situation feels like a chess match. Baltimore isn't just evaluating the player, they're evaluating the leverage. Right now, Green Bay is sending mixed signals. On one hand, they say they value Alexander and want to work things out. On the other hand, insiders like Rob Demovsky are saying the Packers haven't even approached him about a pay cut, and there's a real possibility he could be released if a trade doesn't materialize. That uncertainty is exactly what could work in the Ravens' favor. If Alexander hits the open market and becomes a free agent, then everything changes. Suddenly, the Ravens wouldn't need to give up valuable draft capital. They just need to win the bidding war, and that's a far more appealing situation, especially when you consider Eric DeCosta's approach to roster building. He's not one to overpay or overcommit unless the deal makes perfect sense. The Ravens might have interest, but not at any cost. And even if Green Bay does find a trade partner, that partner is going to need to absorb a hefty contract for a player with a growing injury history. That's a hard sell for most teams. Baltimore has traditionally been smart with how they manage the cap and protect their future flexibility, and this feels like a situation where they're more likely to make a move if the price drops, either in trade compensation or if Alexander is cut and they can sign him to a team-friendly deal. But here's the reality. Time is running out. The draft is looming, and cornerback remains one of the Ravens' biggest needs. If they don't move on Alexander, they're almost certainly going to take a corner early. Jaire Barron, like we mentioned, is probably a long shot. He's flying up draft boards and might not make it out of the top 15. But Benjamin Morrison, Trey Amos, and Shyheim Revel Jr., those guys are absolutely in play in rounds 2 and 3. All three bring traits that fit the Ravens system: length, aggression, and a willingness to play physical, press coverage. That's the Ravens' DNA in the secondary. Now, let's not forget, this team isn't rebuilding. They're reloading. They're still in a Super Bowl window with Lamar Jackson at quarterback, and they need to be thinking aggressively about filling roster gaps without breaking the bank or overextending themselves long term. That brings us back to George Fant. Let's look at his fit a little closer. George Fant, in his best seasons, has proven he can be a capable starting tackle. He's not elite, he's not flashy, but he's exactly what you want from a backup: versatile, experienced, and professional. He's played both left and right tackle, and that flexibility matters when you're dealing with injury-prone players like Ronnie Stanley. And let's be real, Stanley is a huge question mark. Yes, he gave the Ravens 17 games last year, but that was the first time in 4 years he managed that kind of durability. So now I turn it over to you, Ravens flock. Would you take the risk on Jaire Alexander, even with the health and cap concerns? Would you feel better going all in on the draft and building the cornerback room that way? And what about George Fant? Is he worth bringing in as insurance for Ronnie Stanley? Or would you rather the team target a younger, longer-term option? Drop your comments below and let's start a real conversation about where this team is headed. We're on the verge of some big decisions, and how the Ravens handle this next stretch could shape the 2025 season and beyond. Let me know what you think.